I welcome you all for our instruction course. I'll start my sharing screen. Yes. Yes. So I really thank you, Moscon, for giving us this wonderful opportunity to start with this instruction course. Nowadays, doctors are getting sued for medical negligence and various court cases for small petty issues. So we thought of taking this instruction course on medical legal aspects in ophthalmology. I myself, Dr. Ketki Bhatt, I'm working as Associate Professor Ophthalmology in ACPM Medical College, Dhule. So in the past, doctors were considered God, but now may God save doctors. All the specialties are under the scan for medical legal allegations. Even if doctors are working in free hospital or charitable hospital, they are not exempted from any of the medical legal litigations. So we thought that introduction of these issues in the medical curriculum is also need of an hour, so that the future doctors who are going to come into private practice, they should know how to prevent these malpractice laws suits. So our medical legal aspect instruction course will be divided into following headings. Ophthalmological part of various types of consents will be taken care by Dr. Viral Shah sir. He's from Nagpur. Actually, medical record keeping and documentation is a very important part which will save you in the court of law. So definitely medical record keeping has to be meticulous and thorough. So Dr. Prakash Marathe sir will enlighten us about how to keep medical record and how to do documentations. There are various laws which protect us from financial burden. So Dr. Surendra Vadgavkar sir, Professor and HOD Department of Ophthalmology, will be talking about Consumer Protection Act. I myself will be talking about professional indemnity and similar policies which are available to the doctors. And Dr. Aarti Heda from Pune will be talking about landmark judgments which are given by various courts in India. Many of these judgments have cases in the favor of doctor. So we would like to know these landmark judgments. So without taking anybody's time, I would like to first call upon Dr. Viral Shah sir for his talk on consent in ophthalmology. Over to you, Dr. Shah sir.
I think Ketki, you should stop sharing your screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So at the outset, I would like to thank Maharashtra Ophthalmic Society, Scientific Committee, Dr. Ragini Madam and the whole Scientific Committee, and also Dr. Ketki Shah for including me, Ketki Shah, but for including me in this important IC on medical legal aspects of ophthalmology. So my topic given to me is consents in ophthalmology. So the outline for my talk will be informed consent, the law as it stands today, informed consent, essential guidelines, understanding the problem, why patient decide to sue or file complaint, consent form. I request all the participants to please keep their mic on mute. Conveying caring attitudes with information, the process of informed consent, consent integrating the process and the form, and model consent forms. It is necessary for us to understand what is informed consent. The definition of informed consent is defined as a process for getting permission towards medical treatment by a patient, granted in full knowledge of the possible consequences and risks and benefits. In Western countries nowadays, the consent has moved towards a patient viewpoint standard. That is, the type of information should be disclosed to a reasonable person in patient's position and what the patient would want to know. This is in contrast to what is practiced in our Asian countries or Indian subcontinent, where it is a reasonable physician point of view. That is, what a reasonable practitioner should disclose to a patient about the treatment plan. Informed consent the law clearly states it is a non-deligible duty. You cannot give that duty to anybody else. It is ultimately your responsible to get the consent from the patient to explain the process and get an informed consent. Regarding the diagnosis, the nature and purpose of treatment or procedure, risk and benefit, and alternative methods, and risk and benefit of no treatment, all should be covered. 95% of ophthalmic negligence cases that land up in court are settled in favor of the ophthalmologist. So the question arises, why such cases were filed in the first place where there was no sufficient legal ground for the complainant to succeed? The simple answer is patients sue regardless of negligence because they are surprised by the clinical outcome or they are angry with the provider ophthalmologist who strongly believe that they have caused it. All literature strongly suggests that ophthalmologists did not warn them about the potential medical problems following treatment or procedure, or that the doctor tried to mislead them. The caring or uncaring attitude as portrayed by the ophthalmologist plays a very key important role in deciding whether the patient will sue or not. So what is the relevance of consent form? In such scenario, when emotional factors are involved, even the best constructed legal consent form becomes virtually powerless to forestall litigation. Whether the complainant will win or lose is a different situation, but you will receive a legal notice and legal hassles will be there for you. Yet a consent form coupled with a patient's perception that important clinical information was personally conveyed by a caring physician could help prevent many such cases reaching the court. So you have to convey empathy and caring attitudes. The process, the consent, obtaining an informed consent is a process. It's not a end result of signing a form. It's a process, and this process starts right from the time the patient arrives in your clinic, and the whole patient care team, including your receptionist, optometrist, technicians, your nursing staff and attendant, they are all part of this informed consent process. Documentation is important but should not be the sole objective during this phase of process. When possible, start the consent process as early as in the continuum of care as possible. That doesn't mean immediately you should start reciting all the risks and benefit and alternative treatment, but it's an interactive process, exchange of knowledge and relevant information shared with the patient to understand pertinent clinical issues and explore clinical expectations. Try to make arrangements to have family members present and included when discussing the patient's disease and planned medical treatment of surgery. During the initial or subsequent visit, introduce the consent form. Clarify to the patient regarding that the form is intended to help both patient as well as ophthalmologist. Important facts which matter to the patient should be clearly discussed and understood, and be very frank and honest about clinical uncertainties. Always give a copy of the form, consent form or documentation to the patient before he signs it. Let them read it, let them relatives go through it, and if they have any questions regarding it, then you can discuss with them and explain to them various points. If patient appears troubled over the risk and uncertainties of treatment after going through the consent form, empathize with their wish for a good result, accept the ultimate decision that the patient gives you, and if the consent process was properly handled, as described earlier, there should be no animosity. When possible, always make contemporaneous notes in the patient's record during all phases of consent process, even if a form is used. And nowadays, many doctors or almost all doctors now also video record the consent procedure. Model consent forms. The best way to document such information and more importantly record that the consent process took place is still through the pre-established forms which are now available. It is essential for all members of the practice management team to regard such documentation not as just another form to complete, but as an important informational tool to establish a strong therapeutic alliance between doctor and the patient. Short form entries should be avoided. The use of consent form for most operative procedure is still the best way for ophthalmologists to document the process. There is no one right or wrong answer in designing an ophthalmic consent form. Like all parts of medical record, the consent form must present the ophthalmologist made a reasonable effort to effectively carry out the important duty as far as the patient's ongoing care is concerned. Number of ophthalmic specific forms are available in various websites. You can visit AIOS.org, dostline.org, or now we have got in our vernacular Marathi version also at www.moseye.org, Maharashtra Ophthalmic Society's own website. Or if you require some very specific form, you can always contact me on my mobile or by email, and we'll be happy to provide you a model consent form which you can incorporate in your hospital. Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Viral sir, for in-depth detailed knowledge about various types of consent. Definitely, in Maharashtra, many places have started with the Marathi consent, but if the MOS has given some specific format, we will definitely go through that and we will incorporate it. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Marathe sir for his talk about medical record keeping and documentation. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ketaki. Dr. Viral, I think at Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society level, we have come out with Marathi consents.
Yes,
and all those consents, I was part of that team. I was the convener of that. And that is the great effort done by our committee.
It is a big help for all us ophthalmologists, because the law now states that you have to explain it in the vernacular language of the patient, and 90% of our patients in Maharashtra are Marathi. So we have to, it's a great resource tool for us, and we are very thankful to Maharashtra Ophthalmic Society and the committee under you that was part of devising the forms.
Viral Shah sir, I have got one question.
Yes sir, yes sir. Please.
If in a camp there are 100 patients waiting
Yes.
for a surgery, then
Yes.
how can you take the informed consent in such patients? Because their relatives are not available, the NGOs bring the patient in the OT and they ask, we are giving the signature.
Yes. But the consent form for each and every patient has to be signed separately, and if they are related, you have to take their thumbprint, and along with that, the caretaker who had brought the patient to you, the camp organizers or the social workers there, or any village head or what, that they should countersign if the relatives are not there. They should be the guardian for that patient, and they should understand the doctor, because you can take 100 patients in a room and you can inform that you are going to operate on their cataract and you are going to put IOL and there are chances of infections or loss of vision or whatever, but you can give a 5 minutes lecture and then ask them to sign
I
it.
will to sign. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Can I start?
Sir, please.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Perfect.
sir. Yes, sir.
And is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think the topic allotted to me is the meticulous record keeping. So thank you so much, Dr. Ketaki, for inviting me and adding me in this IC, which is very important, and for MOSPAN committee for giving me this opportunity.
Sir, it's our pleasure to have you here.
I think importance of consent, evaluation of our own results. This is very important. So not consent. We are talking about medical records. So you can evaluate yourself about your own results, data for specific paper presentation in the conferences. Then analyze the data for paper publishing in peer-reviewed journals. So that can improve you scientifically also. And the most important, which is related to this particular IC, that is, it is helpful in any medical legal litigations. So record keeping, the legal system relies mainly on documentary evidence in situation of alleged medical negligence. Poor records means poor defense. No records means no defense. This is very important. Whatever you say verbally, and if you say that you have done this, you have done that, no, it is not accepted in court of law. It must be documented properly. And these are the important things about for how much period you should keep your records. Not clearly mentioned anywhere. For consumer forum, patient can approach as outdoor case within 2 years, for indoor case within 3 years. So you have to maintain outdoor records for almost 3 years. Somewhere it's written as 2 years, but 3 years you should remember. Maintain indoor records for almost 10 years. Again, 7 years, 8 years, it is mentioned somewhere, but maximum 10 years you can keep. For medical legal aspects, if the case is involved in medical legal litigation, almost for 30 years. So in short, you can keep it for lifelong. If patient demands his case papers, you should give those documents to the patient within 72 hours. And in case of pediatric patients, suppose the children, they are visiting you and you're operating those patients, a medical negligence can be filed by child after acquiring the age of majority. That is very important. So up to 21 years of age, the child can go. So in medical legal cases, document preserved until case is solved. So in short, all operative records you can keep all the time with you. So first important is the manual method. So for manual method, it was followed in the past, even I have been following this. There are limitations, large storage area is needed, and difficulty in retrieval of records. But still, if you can keep it properly, like in my case, I have kept all those case papers by surname, name, and middle name. I can find out any case paper within 2 minutes. Nowadays, electronic records. So most preferred methods. So it is neat and tidy, easily stored and retrieved. Data can be easily retrieved. Prescription is fully typed, so no errors in understanding handwriting. Previous data of patient is easily available, like fundus photographs, OCT, perimetry images are available one click away. So now medical records, what are the types? So history records, clinical examination records, diagnostic test records, preoperative care records, operation notes records, and post-operative care records. So these are 6 aspects you should remember. Notes are to be perfect in all these aspects. About history, documenting history is important, and it can save us if patient goes in consumer forum. Suppose you are not keeping the record and patient comes to you saying that this eye you have operated, and in your record, suppose you have written properly that right eye was operated by you. That was the guarded prognosis. There was no chance of gaining any vision. There was some comorbidity. That will definitely help you. Then pre-operative, what preparations you have done, like fumigation and autoclaving of equipments properly done, and if you have documented them, like betadine eye drops were put and mentioned in case paper, like pre-operative antibiotic drops were instilled and mentioned even in your case papers. Suppose you are referring that case to super specialists like vitreoretinal surgeon. So date and time of that particular referral must be mentioned in your case paper. That is proper precaution, proper step was taken by you. In operative notes, cataract surgery, like what sort of steps you have done, what type of machine was used, whether it was PICO or SICS, all the steps you have written properly. If it is eventful, uneventful, whether there was any complication, whether the vision was compromised vision, like whether there was any comorbidity, whether it was posterior polar cataract, whether there was any retinal or macular pathology, or whether there was any glaucoma correlated with. These things you can also write accordingly. And then afterwards, that particular document will be very important if it goes in court of law. Like OPD prescription. Prescription of drugs should include name of the patient, date, treatment, preferably in capital, bold, readable letters. This is very important. Duration of eye drop should be mentioned, like suppose you have prescribed any eye drop with steroid, people are taking that for years together, like 2 to 3 years. And suppose there is complication like glaucoma and cataract, and patient can say that I was using these drops. But if you have mentioned properly not to be used for more than 7 days or 15 days, then you are escaped. So you must mention that particular period. And then signature of doctor is a must, and review date. You should definitely write on your case paper that you have to show me again after so many weeks, after so many days, so that if the patient doesn't turn up and some complication occurs afterwards, you can say that you have not visited me. So name and date is also very important. So prescription, that particular copy should also be with you. Then what I was just now said is date is very important. The undated prescription, this is very important. Undated prescription can land a doctor in trouble if patient misuses it. Like suppose the prescription is of 2015 and in 2020 also he is using the same prescription. I think it has got no meaning. So discharge summary, it is also very important document. Like on discharge summary, what you have to write is date of admission, date of discharge, date of surgery, surgical procedure in short, treatment advice, and precautions to be taken post-operatively. This is very important. You must mention this because patients afterwards, they say, you didn't tell me. Otherwise, I would not have done this. And the complication can be correlated with that particular step. What otherwise you have explained, and if that thing happens and patient has not followed, probably you are escaped. So date of next follow-up must be written. Again, in next follow-up, Western type of date writing, and then American and British, it is different. Like 8-9 means it can be 9th August or it can be 8th September. So specify it properly. Like in case of prematurity of retinopathy, suppose the patient is asked for follow-up, that thing can be confused about follow-up. Then discharge summary should be signed by the consultant, because at the end, even if your houseman is writing or nurse is writing, you must sign. Copy should be kept with surgeon. Discrepancies in discharge summary and hospital records can raise suspicion about tampering of medical records. Whatever discharge summaries you have given to the patient, and if you are changing something in your operative notes, then in the court of law, you will be in trouble. So what discharge paper you have given to the patient and your case paper should match with each other. So that tampering must be avoided. Another very important document is the referral letter. Suppose at proper time you have referred the patient to higher center, some tertiary center, some super specialist. You must write date, proper time of issue, patient's condition, why you have referred, cause of referral, that is. And duplicate copy with patient signature, you must keep with you, so that that saves you in court of law afterwards, that you had referred that patient at proper time. Another very important document, most of the doctors, they take it lightly, that is medical certificate. So you must maintain the register of medical certificates issued with at least one identification mark and patient signature, because sometimes the person sitting in front of you for color vision checkup may be different, and the name on the case paper or name on the certificate may be different. Then on medical certificate, lots of cases of patients misusing medical certificates, what we have seen, because of lack of date. If you don't write that date properly, there are cases happened that the operative date written by request of the patient, and that particular date, the patient has done murder, and he can prove that he was in your hospital. But if you are given the wrong date, probably in the court of law, this has happened in case of appendicectomy. Patient said that at that time of murder, I was admitted in the hospital. He just managed doctor to shift the date by 1 week, and the doctor was in trouble. So time you must write properly, and don't issue backdated certificates. Summary, medical records, important aspect in one's medical practice. It not only helps to improve our patient management and develop our treatment plan, it improves our presentation and publishing studies, but also helpful if legal problem arises and sued in consumer forum case. I think this was in short what I could tell you. Hopefully it is important for most of the medical practitioners and basically ophthalmologists in their practice. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ketaki, for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really in detail discussion about medical record keeping, because nowadays, even if things are going electronically or computerized, but if your staff is doing it, but still we have to keep a watch. And as you have clearly mentioned, right, regarding medical certificate also, date and timing needs to be specifically mentioned. Otherwise, some patient will do the crime some point of time, and that he will say that I was with the hospital. Okay. Now I would like to request Dr. Surendra Vadgaonkar sir for his talk on Consumer Protection Act. If anybody wants to ask Marathe sir something, then otherwise we can proceed.
It was
Yes.
everything was clear. That's why we have no questions.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. You can proceed, sir.
Yes, sir. Dr. Vadgaonkar sir, you can please proceed
Yes,
with
yes,
the.
yes, yes. 1 minute.
Till the time the sir is presenting his lecture, Dr. Ragini Parekh, madam, hello. She
Hi,
has joined
Kirti,
our-
congratulations. Good
Thank
evening,
you, ma'am.
everybody.
Good evening, good
Good
evening,
evening.
Chairman, Scientific Committee, ma'am. Wonderful
No, no,
scientific
sir, you are
program.
mentor and
Huh?
guru. Good evening, sir. Sorry
Good
for the
evening.
delay, sir.
No, no, it's all right, madam.
You
Good evening,
Thank you,
madam.
sir.
Ragini madam, good evening. Great show going on.
Good evening, Viral. We are one team. So
Yes.
all of us are doing it together. All of us, including Ketki,
Hello,
Marathe
madam.
sir, you. Good
I
evening,
must-
Vadgaonkar sir.
Hello, madam. How are you?
I must congratulate madam because she's there in each and every hall, looking after
Yes.
whether the things are going on properly or not.
Yes.
Nahi, nahi,
Wonderful.
sir.
Definitely.
Everybody is working very hard. Sirish, Swapnesh, Sumit, they are working. Pankaj, everybody is working
Yes,
very
yes.
hard, sir.
Team is
Thank you,
really
sir.
very good. Very good.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, please carry
Thank
on,
you.
sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and can you see the slides?
Yes, yes.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Surendra Vadgaonkar, Professor and Head, Department of Ophthalmology, ACPM Medical College. I am first thankful to Dr. Parikshit Gupte, Dr. Ragini Parekh, and Dr. Ketki Bhatt to give me this opportunity to present this talk on Consumer Protection Act for ophthalmologists. So Consumer Protection Act, popularly known as COPRA, enacted by Parliament in December 1986 and came into force on April 1987. The amendments were made in 1991, 93, 2002 and repealed and replaced in 2019. The purpose or objective of COPRAs are to protect the consumer from abuse, to provide a venue for grievance and redress, to ensure better quality of living by improving the quality of consumer products and services. A consumer in medical profession is a patient who pays to get services of doctors or hospitals. Any person who pays for the patient, legal heir, representative of patients. In case of death of a patient who is a consumer, legal heirs or representative of the deceased. If the payment has been made by any person who is not legal heir of the deceased. How doctors are involved in CPA? The National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission order decreed that the doctor-patient relationship is a contract for personal service and it is not a master-servant relationship. Hence, the patient who had sustained injuries in the course of treatment can sue doctor in Consumer Protection Court for compensation. Who is liable to COPRA? Doctors with independent practice rendering only free services, private hospitals charging all hospitals having free as well as paying patients, they are liable to both. Doctors, hospitals paid by an insurance firm for treatment of client or an employer for the treatment of an employee. Who is not liable to COPRA? Doctors in hospitals who do not charge their patients, hospitals offering free services to all patients. It is important to know about the negligence in medical practice. The negligence of a doctor is defined as breach of responsibility or duty owed to her patient and which results in actual damage to the patient. Negligence is a breach of duty arising due to act of omission and act of commission, of which no prudent or reasonable doctor under similar circumstances will do. The act of omission, it is a failure to perform essential tests before surgery as BP record, blood sugar level, IOP recording, to rule out ocular pathologies as chronic dacryocystitis, retinal detachment, conjunctivitis, STI, in IOL operation or any intraocular operation. It is seen that the patient furnished with detailed information about his clinical condition. It is failure to give appropriate advice to the patient. It is failure to maintain the aseptic precautions in OT and during operations. It is failure to ask the drug sensitivity or failure to inquire about the systemic diseases and medications. If B scan is not done in a patient of mature cataract, or if it is not written on the paper, or if not written the next date of visit, or if there is a prescription of a medicine other than the allopathic prescription, it is a part of negligence. In act of commission, when you are performing the operations when it is not indicated, or using drugs when they are contraindicated, the doctors will not be held responsible under negligence if the treatment is as per standard textbooks and or accepted professional practice, and still patient suffers loss of injury merely because of complications has occurred. The medical man is not an insurer. He does not warrant successfulness of treatment or cure of patient. He is free to choose whom he will serve. If the patient does not follow the instructions of doctor, and as a result, benefit of operation are reduced or modified or given rise to complications. As per section 88 IPC, a eye surgeon performing YAG laser to rectify the visual defects cause RD, it doesn't come under the negligence. If patient gets heart attack while doing minor operation, also doesn't come under the negligence. When doctors is not negligent, if a drug is prescribed,
Excuse me, doctor, time is up.
just 1 minute. If a drug is prescribed to an appropriate dose for an appropriate condition and the patient develops a reaction of drug, if patient is injured on account of uses of manufacturer's product in form of in which it reaches, or manufacturer will be liable if the negligence is proved. It is not negligence if the nucleus drop occurs and if removal is not feasible, a delay of several days or even weeks may be done. It is not possible to determine the exact power of IOL before surgery or dislocation of lens has been happened. The machineries under the Act, one is Central Consumer Protection Council, State Consumer Protection Council, and District Consumer Protection Council. The forum where the complaints can be entertained depends on the value of goods and service and compensation claim. Limits are in district forum, it is not exceeding the 20 lakhs. In state forum, it is exceeds 20 lakhs and does not exceed 1 crore. In national commission, it exceeds 1 crore. The references we are taken from the legal aspects in ophthalmology by Dr. A. Deshpande sir. Some slides are taken from the internet. I also gone through the Dr. Marathe sir's notes. Therefore, I am thankful to him also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vadgaonkar sir.
Thank you
Yes,
for
yes.
giving me opportunity.
Definitely, no, it is a very important topic. I just wanted to just ask one question. Under CPA, if the hospital is a charitable hospital or free hospital, so patient cannot sue the doctor, right?
Yes. But
Yes.
if they are not charged at all, everything
If
is
it's
free.
totally
Everything
free.
is free. If
May I
some
say something? May I say
Yes,
something?
yes, sir, please.
Ah,
Yeah.
I think even if the hospital is government or charitable, if like basically about charitable hospital, if you are asking, 99 patients are free, but if still you are taking payment
Some
from one
charges.
person,
One
still you
person.
are
Liable.
answerable. Yeah, yeah.
It is liable.
That is very important. Very important.
Yes, sir, that's what. Yes.
So 100% charity is not done in most of the charity hospitals. Some of the beds are paid beds. So even the person is treated under charity can sue. That is the thing you should remember.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So, Dr. Aarti, are you ready with your presentation? Means, can you just
Yes, I
There is
can
some
do that.
disturbances.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of disturbance is there from my end, but it should work. So
Yes.
I just request Surendra sir to stop this scene
Yes,
share, yeah,
1 minute.
so that I can run my presentation.
Okay. Stop sharing.
So I'll start, Dr. Ketki.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, please.
I would like to thank Team Moss and Dr. Ketri for this wonderful opportunity. Today, I'll be telling you all the landmark medico-legal judgments given by the court. The cost of technology is high in ophthalmology, but given the increasingly competitive environment and social demands, there is a pressure to progressively lower the cost to the consumer. To keep costs down, there is a tendency to do as many surgeries as possible in an assembly line fashion, both in hospitals as well as in the charitable camps. We get in trouble when we try to cut the corners. Be cautious, even in the free side, the penalties are too high. Why do I say so? There was a very good perspective published in Indian Journal of Ophthalmology in 2019 when the ophthalmologist turned blind by Dr. Nagpal and group. The first line of the article says, there is none so blind as one who will not see. So let's look into a couple of judgments and published data and learn few lessons. Kerala High Court in 2018 reduced the compensation awarded by the Sessions Court against a hospital in Tamil Nadu from 92 million rupees to 22.5 million rupees for victims of negligence in an eye camp, which was partially funded by DBCS. Criminal charges against the doctors and the administrator of the hospital were thankfully dropped. The reasons given by the Honorable Court to award compensation was that there was no approval to run the hospital, consent to operate was not taken from the State Pollution Control Board, there was no proper design and maintenance of the operating room, there was no anesthetist, no pharmacist, and no facility to do pre-operative laboratory tests, and there was no formalin which was indented despite it being out of stock by the head of the hospital. The court also frowned upon the fact that knowingly fully well that the intraocular lens cost only 56 rupees for the purpose of attracting the villagers, has distributed pamphlets stating that they will be implanted with intraocular lens worth rupees 1,000 to 3,000. Despite Pseudomonas having been cultured from ringer lactate being used, the manufacturing company was absolved of any wrongdoing because a sample of different batch number examined from company stocks was found to be as per the required standards. This, however, is not the first or only case where doctors have operated or organized eye camps have been penalized. There was another landmark judgment in 1989, which was also on a similar case where 84 persons in Khurja and 15 in Moradabad lost their vision due to endophthalmitis, which led to guidelines being laid for eye camps. Honorable Supreme Court awarded more than 26.5 million compensation, including the 6% interest in one case for failing to diagnose retinopathy of prematurity. Though the case and the award was not against the ophthalmologist, but against the pediatrician who treated the premature baby and the hospital, plus the state of Tamil Nadu, but the implications of the judgment for ophthalmologists in terms of quantum of compensation being awarded for loss of vision is enormous. In another recent case where a patient of dengue developed intraocular hemorrhage and was seen by an ophthalmologist after 13 hours, the complainant who finally lost his vision was awarded 3.5 million compensation despite correct treatment having been given by the doctors. Recently, a patient following LASIK surgery for high myopia underwent toric implantable Collamer lens and for unsatisfactory results claimed a sum of 60 million plus as compensation. Thankfully, the court did not agree to this exorbitant claim, especially when the boy completed higher education after surgery and was gainfully employed and active on social media as found by an investigator hired by the hospital. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 in its definition had excluded free services from the purview of Consumer Protection Act, but the Honorable Supreme Court in its wisdom decided that doctors providing free services also would be covered within the purview of Consumer Protection Act. This decision has never been reviewed thereafter, and the implications on the free medical and eye camps are being released belatedly and very slowly. For ophthalmologists, there was also the issue regarding the off-label use of injection Avastin. A hospital in Gujarat and other hospital in Varanasi reported loss of vision following Avastin injections. There have been various such incidences across the country in past few years. The company manufacturing the drug played safe by stating that it promotes Avastin only for carcinoma colon and does not support use of drug through routes of administration for which it was not developed or registered. Ophthalmologists, like doctors of other specialties, used abbreviation and short forms instead of detailed notes. This was highlighted in a recent case where the ophthalmologist on 24th day of birth had examined the premature child and written in the notes, "No ROP seen." The child was thereafter discharged and advised to come for follow-up in special clinic where such children are closely monitored. The court observed that the OP5 should have performed retinal examination with binocular indirect ophthalmoscope on dilatation of pupil with scleral depression to a certain avascular zone at periphery of retina. Nothing is forthcoming from the medico-legal record that this was done. Therefore, it appeared to be only a bare visual examination done by OP5 in haste to cover up. The court's view was that neither had the doctors done examination for ROP nor had they advised follow-up for ROP for the child. 6.4 million compensation was awarded in this case. 9-year-old child underwent ophthalmic surgery for squint. The patient suffered cardiac asystole towards the end of the surgery. Successful resuscitation was done, but the patient continued to have episodes of asystole and bradycardia, for which pacemaker wire was placed. The patient subsequently expired while in the ICU. NCDRC concluded that the consent obtained from the mother of the child was just a routine consent and not really an informed consent. Although the anesthetist claimed that retrobulbar block was given by the surgeon, the 3 documents, that is the anesthesia note, the ophthalmic surgery notes, and the physician's progress note had no mention of retrobulbar block. Hence, NCDRC concluded that no block was given. The word glyco was written instead of glycopyrrolate in OT record, and use of confusing abbreviations in medical records is deficiency in service. Compensation was awarded on these grounds. Even improper OPD prescriptions, especially if post-operative instructions are not properly written, can result in damage being awarded by courts. After a pterygium surgery, the doctor advised the patient to use mitomycin C, but committed error by not prescribing the medicine was to be used for how many days. Appellant, instead of coming back for checkup, continued using mitomycin C without consulting the doctor, which led to damage caused to his eye. Compensation was awarded as limited negligence of the doctor for not writing a complete and proper prescription. Contributory negligence by patient was held by the court in this case because he continued to take the medicine on his own without consulting the doctor. In another case, a post-cataract surgery patient who was a coolie did not take rest. Patient developed corneal injury due to working in his fields. The court held that he should have been instructed about post-operative care and the follow-up precautions, but the medical record was devoid of such instructions. Compensation awarded by lower court upheld by National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission. Times have now changed and there is cost to be paid even for providing free services. In India, the prevalent tradition of providing free services has also resulted in lowering of guard by the eye surgeons. These mass eye camps assembly, popularly called as free eye camps, have seen millions of people benefited. But recently, there is an increase in number of cases where exorbitant penalty have been imposed by the courts, and this has destroyed the careers of many ophthalmologists. Time has now come to introspect and to factor the cost of litigations and compensation into the cost of the surgery so that we not only benefit the patients, but also safeguard the ophthalmologist and help them fulfill their responsibilities towards their own dependents. So problems are bound to happen. How we face them and how we overcome them will make us a better surgeon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, definitely this presentation has given us insight that what things we should not do, like maintaining proper documentation, writing words in full format, even anesthesia notes needs to be in the full language. definitely these landmark judgment have opened our eyes regarding what we should exactly do for avoiding it. Now, I will be presenting a presentation on professional indemnity. There are, just a minute. Many professional indemnity is a type of basically it is an insurance for which safeguards doctor from various lawsuits, and it helps us in financially stabilizing doctor in even if some lawsuits happen and doctor has to pay for it. So here are some, I would like to give practical tips about indemnity. I have no financial disclosures to make, but I would like to specially thank Dr. Ravi Wankhedkar, who is Treasurer, World Medical Association. So why this indemnity needed? As I have already mentioned, previously doctors were considered God, but now doctors are being sued for malpractice and medical negligence now and then. And these cases are included in consumer code. So the amount of compensation is increased mainly up to 20 lakhs. The doctor's expertise lies in protecting health of the patient, but totally we cannot eliminate the human errors. No doctor wants to harm his patient or do bad surgery or do bad for the patient, but human errors cannot be totally eliminated. So doctors are at risk for litigations, and we need to protect ourselves from the patient's lawsuits. So what is exactly professional indemnity? It is an insurance plan to financially safeguard medical practitioners. It covers the legal cost of lawyer, and it also covers the claims for compensation by patients. So it is a special contractual obligation of one party to compensate loss incurred by aggravated party. As Dr. Vadgaonkar sir have mentioned, it compensates for alleged error, omission, act of omission, and act of commissions in the professional services. There is one terminology in professional indemnity called as vicarious liability. In this, hospital can be directly liable for their own negligence, or they can be sued for malpractice by their employees. So according to legal rule, vicarious liability means hospitals are liable for their employees' negligence. In other words, boss is liable for its employees. Indemnity policies, we advocate to take indemnity insurance policies for doctors and hospital with staff separately. So what exactly professional indemnity includes? It includes all the professionals like doctors, medical practitioners, hospitals, clinic, diagnostic center, nursing homes, and even lawyers, advocates, and counselors. It covers the cost or claim of the investigation expenses. It covers professional negligence. It covers the unintentional breach of confidentiality or copyright. But if there is intentional breach of some intentional breach in the confidentiality, or the act is a criminal act or fraud, or when the doctor is being sued for being under influence of drug or alcohol, then this is not professional indemnity cannot be availed of. Amount of sum for which doctors can be sued can be up to more than 50 lakhs. So we need something to financially safeguard us. So this professional indemnity policy ensures some amount of sum, that is money, and this sum is called as limit of indemnity. This limit is fixed per accident and per policy period. There is one SBI credit card which is provided for the IMA members, which provides complimentary professional indemnity insurance worth 20 lakhs to the doctors. So what are the institutes which provide you with these professional indemnity, or from where you can take these policies? First two which I have mentioned are IMA schemes like Indian Medical Association National Professional Protection Scheme, and second is Indian Medical Legal Consulting Services. These both services cover all the medical legal and administrative complaints done by the patient, while other companies like general insurance companies like United India or National, if they provide you with the professional indemnity policy, they cater only consumer claims. There are a few terminologies in professional indemnity. So what is a policy period? It starts from the 12th midnight of following date of the acceptance of the policy, and it expires usually after 1 year on the scheduled date of midnight of the scheduled date. There is one terminology, that is bodily injury. In professional indemnity covers bodily injury. So what does it exactly mean? It means death, injury, disease or illness of any person. So some points more about IMA's National Protection Scheme. This scheme is available only for the life members of Indian Medical Association. It helps in the case of harassment or litigation. So if some mishap happens, so if some doctors is getting sued for his malpractice, and so the concerned member needs to inform the honorary secretary and state representative of the professional indemnity scheme as soon as the incident occurs. So this incident can be either in the form of notice from an advocate or any legal forum, or from an individual patient or its relatives. So as soon as something like this happens, if you get some notice from the court of law, then some court, then you should inform the honorary secretary. They will guide you regarding the further process, and they will give you according legal help aid also, and your further process will start as early as possible. All India Ophthalmic Society has come up with the tie-up with the Indian Medical Association, and they have come up with a very good policy for ophthalmologists. It has got baseline non-refundable fees of 3,000 INR, but if there are no claims done in each year, then each year this amount gets reduced by 100 rupees up to 6 years. So all ophthalmologists should go through the points of these indemnity scheme and make avail of it. So as I have already mentioned, it covers around 10 lakhs. This indemnity policy covers around 10 lakhs for the single case, and 20 lakhs per year will be available. Some doctors, if required, can avail of financial assistance up to 50 lakhs also. That scheme is called as Enhanced Protection Scheme. It is also given by Indian Medical Association, and the fees for that is around 10,000 rupees. Sometimes doctor files a counter petition against the patient or defamation case. And if he wins the case and compensation is ordered in his favor, then 50% of this amount should be remitted to the scheme after deducting all the expenses. We have seen about the IMA policies. Now policy by general insurance company like United India or National, it caters only consumer claims. It includes policyholder and its employees also. It has got jurisdiction over all Indian courts, and it covers bodily injuries and negligence claims. But this indemnity is applicable only if the act has been committed during the insurance period without break. So there is no grace period for the policy renewal. So you have to mandatorily renew it before the due date. So I would like to give few take-home messages through this talk, that don't panic even if litigations occur. You should know your law well. You should seek legal aid as early as possible, and you ensure your hospital employs separately and regularly renew policies in due time to avoid lapse. And thank you everyone for the patient listening about this talk. Yes. So if anyone is not having any question.
We don't have any question,
yeah,
because
definitely.
it was very well elaborated and
Yes.
nicely presented, which I was not knowing about the indemnity. So I got the knowledge, and I will try to take the message that I have
Definitely.
to take the indemnity,
Yes, sir.
giving the
Yes, sir,
fees to
definitely
the
sure,
AIS.
can do that.
Thank you.
So, can I add something?
Yes, sir, definitely. Please.
I think most of the things you have covered
Yes.
in a nice
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Only the thing is two issues nowadays. Most of the times the doctors, they take indemnity for years together, and there is a lapse of one year.
Okay.
Whenever there is a lapse, the previous years are not at all covered. They are not at all counted. So one has to be careful that the continuity of the indemnity policy must be done. That is very
Yes.
important.
Yes,
That is
sir.
a proactive date, probably they call it as.
Yes, sir.
Number two, nowadays there are various insurance companies, they are asking for indemnity, and you are tempted to take additional indemnity, or you want to replace the previous indemnity. So whenever you want to replace the previous indemnity, the both policies must run parallel to each other at least for 2 years. So the previous policy ends, indemnity ends, and then you start this one. So 2 years should be common. Another thing is, if you want to take another indemnity policy as top up one, again, there are certain rules and regulations. Like suppose 25 lakhs are covered by your previous indemnity, and again 2 crores are covered by your next indemnity. Probably there are specifications like 25 lakhs to be used only for one case, or 25 lakhs to be used for 2 cases of 12 lakhs each, like that. So while shifting to another indemnity policy, you must be careful. These are just the comments. From
Yes,
my
sir. That's what I also wanted to ask. If we take sort of from other company, like we take 2 policies from 2 different companies, so that should.
Yeah, add-on. It can be used as add-on.
Okay.
And if you want to
Yeah,
shift
you
from
can-
one company to another, yeah.
Sir, you can take from 2 companies, but you have to inform both the companies that you have other policy also there.
Yes, yes.
And whenever you file for whenever a case is filed against you, you have to choose which company you want to represent you for that or cover you for that indemnity.
And one more thing I must add here, there are 2 policies I know which are apart from routine insurance companies. One is from Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society, which most of you know. Like while taking this Maharashtra Ophthalmological Society policy, this is like group insurance, and maximum coverage is given for minimum premium. That is the advantage what you get. Another thing is from IMA, there is professional protection scheme, which is equivalent to sort of these indemnity schemes, where the lawyer is devoted one. It is more competent as compared to indemnity company lawyers. So that professional protection scheme also you can think, it is Maharashtra State Professional Indemnity Scheme policy, and the office of this is situated at Nagpur.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So here I would like to conclude regarding our talk that nowadays we should keep a good relationship with all our other branch faculties also to prevent because sometimes what happens, patient goes to other doctors, he talks something about us, and if you have criticized that doctor previously, then you might land up into trouble. So you should not criticize other doctors. You should never comment about mismanagement of the other hospital. And in case of pediatric patient, parent counseling should be, proper communication with parents should be there. So we should, if you do ethical practice, do good to the patient and community, I think we can prevent all these medico-legal lawsuits and mental and financial harassment happening through that.
I think the first comment done by you about comment by your colleagues, that is very, very, very important. In the past, probably doctors used to feel that they are boss, they are gods, they know everything, nothing can go against them. And they were little careless to comment about their colleagues. Nowadays, I think that is the only thing which goes against you in the court of law. Most of the medical legal cases are just because of loose comment by your colleagues. So whenever the patient comes to you, you shouldn't talk bad about your colleague. Even if something has gone wrong, there are certain rules and regulations the way you should talk to your patients. I think any wrong remark, bad remark, fetches that particular doctor in court of law, and in return that can happen against you also. So all of us must follow that particular procedure, not to comment. Even if there is change in the prescription, change in the line of treatment, the way you can say is that particular time of treatment, the doctor must have felt like that, and he felt that the treatment is okay according to him. According to him, the treatment was okay, but according to me, this is the treatment. You shouldn't say that that treatment was wrong or his number was wrong. The surgery what he has done is wrong. The oil put by that particular surgeon is wrong. Probably these things, they create many more problems in medical legal litigation. So we have to be careful about commenting our colleagues. That is very important.
Definitely.
Anyone would like to add anything? Otherwise, we can conclude with the session.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a great session. Thank you, Dr. Ketki,
Yes,
Marathe sir, Surendra sir, Arti. So nice to see you. Hopefully we will meet physically in the next conference soon.
Yes, 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 we
Yes,
are,
sir. Yeah.
we are very eager
Thank
to.
you so much. It was pleasure being with all of you.
I must congratulate Dr. Ketake because Ketake is practicing in peripheral area like Dhule. Even Dr. Vadgaonkar
Yes,
sir,
sir.
both of them are there at Dhule Medical College.
Hmm.
There are stalwarts in medical field, like at IMA level, at ophthalmological society level. But youngsters like you are coming forward and formulating the IC on medical aspects. That is very important. Dr. Aarti is also joining, and few of us are also trying to help you. And you must continue and keep it up. Like medical
Yes.
aspects are must for our practice, and they must be covered by young generation doctors also.
Yes,
It is
yes.
nice that you people are taking interest.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Vadgaonkar sir, am I right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. That
Thank
was
you.
a very motivating statement from you.
Yes.
I'm sure we
definitely.
will continue this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
whenever you need any help, I am always there.
Yes, sir. Yes,
You
sir.
can,
I have
call
gone
me
through
anytime.
your slides, sir. That's
Oh,
why I can present this very nicely.
Thank you,
I
sir. Thank
feel-
you. Consumer Protection Act, basically, most of the medical legal aspects, apart from that, what law in 86 and 96 they had means implemented. Recently, there were certain changes, and those are the bad changes for medical
Exactly.
profession. Like so much amount is covered even at district level, state level, and national level. Even the person and the doctor, if they are from various different cities, like the person is from Chandigarh, he can put the case in Chandigarh Court of Law against the doctor who is staying in
Doctor.
Maharashtra. There are so many worse situations in this Consumer Protection Act. Again, one more thing was misleading in between. They were saying that medical profession is out of this Consumer Protection Act, but no, it is not.
No.
Because there is the exclusion list. Unless medical profession is written in that exclusion list, we are not exempted from Consumer Protection Act. So
You-
that misinterpretation of medical fraternity not under CPA is not correct.
Even the clause for arbitration, clause for arbitration is also very big disadvantage for us.
There are
Nowadays,
agencies.
yeah.
There are
There are
agents.
now
there are
professional agencies, they call and settle for 5
Yeah,
lakhs,
they
7
try
lakhs.
to-
In a year, you get 3 cases, you are down by 15, 20 lakhs. So
Even
arbitration,
medical legal consultants, advocates, they are taking undue advantage of this
Undue
particular Consumer Protection Act. Basically, government felt that CPA is patient friendly and doctor friendly also, but no, it is more of non-patient
Patient.
friendly and non-doctor friendly. Undue people are taking undue advantage of this particular law. It is, not
Blackmailing
going
is
to, it is not going to help the patients in future also.
Dr. Ketki, yeah,
Because
Dr.
that way-
Ketki, yeah, there is a message from Dr. Gigani.
Yes. Yes.
He wants a
He can
copy.
copy.
Yeah, if he will
Yes.
be able to provide him, so it will be great.
Yes, sir. Actually, the session is recorded, but we can provide him with the PPTs of possible. Yes, sir.
It's
Then
good that
check the
Dr.
YouTube.
Gigani was attending the session. So nice
Yeah.
of you, Dr. Sir.
Yes.
So you can
yes.
provide the YouTube link also if you get for this session.
Yeah, the conference is being recorded, so I'm sure they will put it on the.
Yeah, it is already
website.
running live on YouTube also.
YouTube.
So it will be there in the YouTube also, particularly.
Yes, sir. Yes. So I will thank everybody and
Thank
have a
you
great
all.
day. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.